Jeff Passan covers baseball for ESPN. And look, we have some picks to get to, but there's big news in the Passan household, and that is you got a new dog. You have
We
a
did.
puppy, which this is a big dog podcast, a big pet podcast. Give us the details.
Daisy Passon arrived on National Puppy Day. Like we didn't even realize that there was such. I know there are days for everything now, but on Sunday we picked her up, and she's been a terrorist ever since. And it's my older son is 4.5 years ahead of my younger son, and I remember when the second one came home. I had forgotten how to like be a dad to a baby. And it's the same thing here. Our older dog is 8 now, and Daisy comes home, and I'm just like, what do I do? Wait, they bite all the time? They're little turds? Why did we get a puppy? What are we doing wrong here? How stupid are we? And then thankfully my wife is really good with dogs, and by the end of like the first full 24 hours, I felt a lot better about our situation.
Yeah. And so, based on what you told me, I think your puppy at this point is sort of like the Jose Siri of right, the household in terms of how its relationship is with your 8-year-old dog.
Yes, and in that respect, Ginger, our older dog, is the Juan Soto to her, trying to lead her on a better path and show how things should be done. So, but Buster, there's always a baseball comp for everything in life, and to have my dogs comped to Juan Soto and Jose Siri makes my day.
All right, let's just dive into the picks. Every year, the biggest challenge for me is to keep track of the picks that I've made because I might be on a radio show in the middle of March. They'll ask me for
Yep,
picks, and then I'm on a
yep.
week later, and you're like, oh my God, who did I say then? Because at some point, I'm sure this spring, I probably picked Paul Skenes and Blake Snell to be the National League Cy Young Award winner. I landed on Snell for ESPN.com, but that's kind of how picks go, right? This time of year, like especially the real close ones.
So just to pull the curtain back here a little bit on how the sausage of the podcast gets made, I had to just pull up the email now that I sent in to our editor Liz Finney with my picks, and she asked AL East winner, AL Central winner, on and on, MVP, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young. I aside from the picks, I have one line that I wrote her in this email, and it is, I feel good about none of this. And that is my feeling about picks because so much changes. I mean, we're making picks before we know who's going to get hurt, before we know who's going to get traded for. Like the course of a season unfolds in such unique and miraculous ways sometimes that I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a genius unless I get all of them right. In which case, everything was great. And where do you want to start? Are we going AL East Central? Are we going NL? Lead the way, Mr. Host.
Okay, so let's talk about National League division winners. And you talk about, unless you're right, then you're going to brag about it being a genius. Doesn't it feel like that if you don't pick the Dodgers to win the National League East, you're just trying to be the most interesting man in the world, the interesting person? Like it's
Is
such
is
an
there
obvious pick.
is there anyone on the ESPN staff who is going to pick anyone to win the National League West aside from the Dodgers? I
I
I
hope not.
can't I can't here's the thing though, Buster. Like squint really, really hard, and I can see the Diamondbacks doing it. Like
Okay.
if there's anyone to me who's got a chance to spoil the Dodgers, it is the Diamondbacks. They were a complete team already last year, and they go out and add Corbin Burns, the best pitcher in free agency, and they've done such a good job of fortifying their bullpen over the last year or so, getting Justin Martinez, signing him long term, trading for AJ Puck, who was absolutely brilliant. Ryan Thompson always steady there. Kevin Ginkel, pitched really well in the postseason a couple of years ago and has been steady. And then you look at a deep rotation and the lineup that scored the most runs in the National League last year. So there's an argument to be made there, but I'm just not the one who's going to make it.
No, I think if someone did pick some team other than the Dodgers to win the division, I'm just talking regular season.
Hmm.
My reaction would be like, yeah, you don't really believe that. You're
And
just trying to be different, and you don't really believe because the Dodgers are the obvious pick in the National League West. What about the National League Central for you, the land of opportunity?
Yeah, I have a little bit of buyer's remorse already with this because I think the Cubs are getting the majority of the love from our staff. I picked Milwaukee. And my rationale was if you look on paper, the talent is pretty similar between those two teams. I just think Jackson Churio is going to have like, I don't know
I
about an
know.
all-time age 21 season, but he's so good. And he got off to a bad start last year. I think we're going to see the fully realized version of Jackson Churio this year. But look, like reflecting on it, I'm like, should I just have picked the Reds? I, I might be the biggest Matt McClain fan that exists. I think he's an exceptional baseball player, and I love undersized guys who have outsized skills. And Matt McClain plays like a guy who's 6'2" and 200 pounds, not someone who's 5'8" and 170 or whatever he is. I love Ellie De La Cruz. I think the rotation's probably going to be a little bit better than people realize with Hunter Green at the forefront. And there's the Terry Francona factor, and I don't want to undersell that. I have whipsawed when it comes to my belief in how important managers are. I went through that. I feel like it's kind of like college when you're exploring what your beliefs are, and you see something radical and you're like, oh, that makes sense. And for a little while, I was like, managers, they don't have all that. No, managers have an exceptional impact on a team. And it's not just during the game, it's not just the game theory element of, well, when do you put a guy in? When do you pinch hit? When do you hit and run? All the little tactical things. It's creating culture in a clubhouse and having an environment in which your players feel like they are in the best position to succeed. And I'm not sure anybody does that better than Terry Francona. And if he has the energy to make it through this season, to get past all of the things his body is telling him not to do, I think the Reds have a real chance. I don't know, I'm not even going to call it a surprise buster in the NL Central because
Yeah.
any of the five could win the division. And I wouldn't be like, what? Where did that come from? How did that happen? Because both central divisions are just petri dishes of averageness.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Matt McClain, I described in his rookie year when you watch him play, he looks like he's coming for your lunch. Like he just
Yes.
plays with that edge, like a Dustin Pedroia. I think that the toughest division winner to pick is actually in the National League East because you're talking about three really good teams in the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets. Who you got?
I think the Braves and the Phillies are maybe a tick above the Mets at this
I
point.
agree.
I don't see them on equal ground. I worry about the Mets pitching. Don't worry about their lineup, even though the Alvarez and McNeil injuries thin it out a little. That top five, though, I mean, the Mets are gonna have a fun season, if nothing else. But uh, when it comes down to Braves and Phillies, it's something of a coin flip. I went with Atlanta.
Me
I
too.
and I think they just have the capacity to bounce back, whether it's Austin Riley or Matt Olson or Ozzy Albies, the eventual return of Ronald Acuna. I think Michael Harris is in line for a big year. He wants to play at the All-Star game in Atlanta with his buddy Lawrence Butler, where they grew up. And then you look at the rotation. I think the difference maker for me, it's not Spencer Strider showing that his stuff is still there and that his command has finally come back. Because earlier in the spring, people around Atlanta's camp were like, I don't know about how Strider is going to be able to throw strikes. He looks exceptional. Chris Sale, not sure he's going to have the same year he did last year, but I think he's going to be pretty good. But it's Spencer Schwellenbach, and
Yep.
man, he is just like the pitcher born for my heart. A young guy who embraces a diverse number of pitches. It took Seth Lugo a decade to figure out, okay, I can be this guy who throws a bunch of different pitches. Spencer Schwellenbach's in his early 20s and throws six legitimate, like average two plus pitches and throws them for strikes, gets swing and miss. To have him as your number three starter eventually, it's quite a gift. I do want to see Atlanta's bullpen, though. Like that concerns me some. Losing Joe Jimenez really cut into their depth, but they've got so many power arms in that organization. I think they're going to figure out eventually how to cobble a proper bullpen together.
Yeah, and Schwellenbach, he's kind of like his generation's Mark Burley. He doesn't mess around. Like he
No,
goes after hitters, and he's just relentless in how he attacks. And
it's
I
because he's
agree
a
with
hitter,
you.
Buster. He's a hitter who
Right.
happens to be pitching. Like he takes the mindset of the hitter, which I totally dig.
Yep. Let's. I want to make sure we get through all your picks. Three wild card picks. Teams in the National League.
Philadelphia,
Cosign,
Arizona, New York.
cosign, cosign. We totally are all in agreement on those. The American League East.
I feel worse about this than anything. I have no freaking idea who's going to win the AL East. That to me is the toughest division to pick. I went with Boston. Um, before Garrett Cole and Giancarlo Stanton got hurt, and the Yankees have been, Luis Heel down for a couple of months, I probably would have gone with the Yankees. Then Shane McClanahan. I was tempted to go with the Rays. Like I was very tempted to go with the Rays. When I sent the pick in, I thought Shane McClanahan was more hurt than he actually is. But at the same time, the Red Sox that I like that they're going after it. I like that they're not pussyfooting around with their prospects. Christian Campbell's going to be their second baseman, even though he got off to a horrendous start in camp, because they feel like he's going to be the one who gives them the best opportunity to win. And I really appreciate teams that don't look at the window that they've got and try to delay it at all. Like, let's extend this thing as much as we possibly can, take advantage of Alex Bregman with the at least 1 year that we have him. And, hopefully for the Red Sox, the pitching holds up because that is going to be, to me, the impediment between them and winning this division.
And American League Central and the American League West winners are.
Detroit in the Central. Don't feel great about that. I think it's either them or Kansas City.
Yep, I picked Kansas City.
And I've got Texas in the West.
Yep,
And
same.
I vacillated between them and Seattle, and I don't mean to like look at Houston, which has been as dominant as any team in its division, not named the Los Angeles Dodgers over the last decade, but I just feel like the Rangers are so much more than they were last year, a lot closer to the team that won the World Series in 2023 than they're showing last season.
Yeah, and the American League is a complete mud bog, which means if you didn't feel great about your American League Central pick of the Tigers, you definitely didn't feel good about your wild card picks. I've
No,
never seen a league more wide open than the American League is
you're
this in
right, man. I
2025.
I just have I have no faith in any of the teams to actually be all that good. I mean, how many teams in the National League are better than every team in the American League?
Four or
At
five.
least, yeah, I was going to say at least like to me, it's a guaranteed three with Philadelphia, Atlanta, and the Dodgers. But you can make an argument for the Diamondbacks. You can make an argument for the Mets. I won't make the argument for the Padres, but some certainly could, and their ceiling is there. All of this is my way of backing into these picks, which I do not feel good about. I have Seattle, Baltimore, and Kansas City. So I do not have the Yankees right now making the playoffs. And it's not like this is not intended to be some indictment against the Yankees. It's just when you lose your ace and when you lose the guy who along with Juan Soto, helped carry you in the playoffs last season. It's really hard to recover from that, but maybe I'm underselling Austin Wells, top of the lineup guy with some power. And maybe Cody Bellinger has a year like he did a couple years ago, and Paul Goldschmidt finds the fountain of youth. And the pivot that the Yankees did, even in spite of their injuries, turns out to be really good. I don't think the Yankees are going to be bad. I just think it's going to be a bunch of teams in the 84 to 87 win area, and it's going to be chaos toward the end of September.
And I think the Yankees will spend, which is why I wound up picking them as a wild
Yeah.
card team.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
totally
they'll it,
reasonable.
yeah, and going in and their farm system, there are signs that it's taking a step forward after a disastrous year last year, so they'll be in a better position to make trades as they need them. And in the past, they've always done that, right? And there's going to be a lot of guys I think available if San Diego drops out, if Toronto drops out. At some point,
Mhm.
there are a lot of teams that are going to have players available. Let's whip through your major award winners. National League MVP. Did you take the chalk?
Oh, dude, I always take chalk. Why? Like, how can you not pick Ohtani in good faith? Like he's going now. This is an interesting question. When's he going to pitch? You know, he's been
Right.
shut down for a month, Buster. So he's got to be like he's got to build back up again. And the notion that he's going to be pitching in May, I don't know about that necessarily at this point. That was the target. It could happen, but he's still Shohei Ohtani, and he's still going to play two ways. And there's just nobody who matches the value. And as far as I can tell, value is the root of valuable. So I'm going with him.
Cy Young,
Paul Skenes. Again, when it comes
can't
to
argue with that.
these things, I just don't try to get too cute. Paul Skenes is the best pitcher in baseball right now, I think. And
Yeah.
so because he is the best pitcher in baseball, I am going to pick him to win the Cy Young. Simple as that.
I pick Blake Snell with a full spring training and playing in
Totally
the
fair.
Dodgers, but I certainly can't argue with you on that. National League Rookie of the Year, which might be the most uncertain pick of all the major awards.
I went with Bubba Chandler. And Bubba Chandler, for those who don't know, right-handed pitcher with the Pirates. Another in their long, like the Pirates have done a good job of developing power arms. I mean, I understand Skeens was the first overall pick, but Jared Jones, Bubba Chandler, Mitch Keller, you can go on, and they have a bunch more coming. Hunter Barco, and Braxton Ashcraft. Chandler, though, I I picked Bubba Chandler simply because when Paul Skeens got named opening day starter, Chandler, who has yet to debut in the big leagues, sent him a text saying, "Enjoy, it's going to be your last one," which was to suggest that he would be the opening day starter next year. I love the confidence. I love the stuff. A super athlete who could have played high level college football, but chose baseball and was good enough to be a two-way player in baseball, but they focused on the pitching because Pirates thought that they could get more out of it, and he's on the cusp right now, and I think he's going to be in the big league soon.
You could tell from Paul Skeen's reaction, he loved it. Okay,
Love it.
American League major award winners, run through it: MVP, Cy Young Award, Rookie of the Year.
MVP, Bobby Witt Jr.,
Okay,
Cy Young, Garrett Crochet, and
that's who I picked.
rookie of the year, Christian Campbell.
Okay. And Christian Campbell, as you said, he's going to get a lot of playing time. And the other thing I wanted to ask you quickly before you go, tell me about who you would have as maybe a surprise player in the National League, surprise player in the American League.
Ooh, surprise player. Are we talking
You can
like
define it any way you want. You can pick out someone come out of the woodworks. In other words, if you have a friend who is a big fantasy player, say, hey, this guy is going to exceed expectations this year and have a really big year.
I don't know that Jackson Merrill is going to constitute a surprise for anyone. I don't think people realize how good he is.
Totally agree with you on this.
Yeah, like he is. We should have known last year when a lifetime shortstop transitioned over 6 weeks of spring training to center field and played like a really good center field, which is what he did last year. And I think the bat and the power are absolutely going to take steps forward this year.
And
So
Jackson Merrill, yeah, I was going to say, and playing center field, I texted Mike Schilt in the spring and I said, when did you know that he was going to be good enough to be on your opening day roster? And he said, first game, because you saw how comfortable he was, which is in keeping with everything that AJ Preller saw when he was an amateur, and he saw the way that he related to teammates. And I agree with you. I mean, I think people have not really understood how good Jackson Merrill is about the American League.
American League. Let's go. I picked Detroit because I really love their pitching staff.
Here we
Um,
go.
and I'm a stuff guy. I'm gonna bet on stuff all the time. And I think Jackson Jobe has a chance to, and you could pick a couple of guys in Detroit's rotation. Casey Mize spending the spring looking more like the number one overall pick from a few years back, and his stuff has really returned, and the split is nasty. But Jackson Jobe, I remember the first time I realized how good Jackson Jobe was. Kylie McDaniel has this incredible spreadsheet that takes all of the pitch metrics that are captured by TrackMan and StatCast and puts grades, like assigns grades for each pitch on the 20 to 80 scale. And Jackson Jobe had like 460 plus pitches, which is, I mean, you only see that with who has 460 plus pitches now? Like Skenes. I mean, it's like if you can throw strikes and you have that quality of stuff, you are going to be really, really good. And I think the only thing holding back Jackson Jobe from winning American League Rookie of the Year is they're probably not going to push him too hard in terms of
Right.
innings. But man, when you have Tarek Skubal, who I think is such a good presence in a clubhouse for a younger pitcher, when you have Tarek Skubal looking over your shoulder and giving you advice and showing you how to be a big league pitcher, there are not a lot of better guys out there. And between Chris Fetter and Robin Lund, their pitching coaches, and AJ Hinch guiding them, man, Detroit has a chance to be really good for a really long time, Buster. And Jackson Jobe is going to be, if not at, then at very least near the forefront of that.
Yeah, we're getting ready for a draft. Jake and I are going to draft our team that we're going to argue over all summer long. And Jackson Jobe is going to be one of the guys I'm going to ram down his throat. Like at the beginning of April last year when Skenes wasn't on a big league roster, I was like, dude,
Get
take
him.
him now. Do
Get him.
not wait. Get him right now. Jackson Jobe is one of those guys. All right, Jeff. Hey, thanks for doing this. And we'll hold you all these picks. I won't razz you the way that I do Tim, though. It's one of my most enjoyable processes of the year is to get Tim's picks and just lock him in all year. Like, why did you pick that team? What were you thinking?
Buster, why are you bringing that up?